Hi guys, before we get into this particular video, as I'm sure you can see by the title of it, I do want to give a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about sexual assault and abuse in today's video, and we will be talking about specifically abuse within a BDSM context, and this will include some descriptions from the survivors of the specific abuse that they have suffered. So if this is something that is going to upset you, I really would urge you to, not watch this video or wait until you are in a good and safe place before you do sit down to watch it. So I just wanted to give you that before we get into all of the details here today. The other thing I want to let you guys know is that this is filmed on February 2nd. So by the time you're seeing this, especially if it's been more than a couple of days, there may be more to the story that I am not aware of right now. I'm just giving you the information that I have handy and available to me right now on February 2nd. So with that, let's get into the video today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Morgan Thorne. I'm a BDSM educator. I also live a BDSM lifestyle. I have done so for all of my adult life, and I include this in my personal relationships. I've also been a professional dominatrix. I've been doing this for a long time. And I have opinions. I have lots of opinions. As I'm sure you can kind of figure out by looking at me, I also am a bit of a, I guess I'm a goth a little bit. I used to be much more into the goth scene when I was younger. And specifically, I grew up in the 90s. That's when I was in high school and everything. So right as Marilyn Manson sort of became very famous and was at the height of his fame. So this particular story has really kind of caught my eye. I'm not a huge Marilyn Manson fan personally, but I mean, I grew up in the 90s. All my friends loved Marilyn Manson, or a lot of my friends loved Marilyn Manson. So I feel like I'm going to have to rename this video to, and just change my intro and be like, welcome to celebrities being assholes and calling it BDSM, because this seems to be happening so much. I just made the video for Armie Hammer, I believe his name is, who's an actor that I don't really know, but I wanted to talk about that particular story. And now here we are with Marilyn Manson. So this particular situation started with an actress coming forward and talking about the abuse that she suffered or alleges to have suffered at the hands of Marilyn Manson. And her name is Evan Rachel Wood. Uh, she, on Monday, so yesterday for me, because today is Tuesday, she posted that the abuser that she had spoken about in the past was Brian Warner, aka Marilyn Manson. So I'm going to read for you the actual statement that she made, and we're going to kind of be going back and forth to some of the actual statements that the victims have made. This is Evan Rachel Wood, and she said, he started grooming me when I was a teenager and horrifically abused me for years. I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. I'm here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent. So that is a very powerful statement that she's made, and she's certainly not alone. Four other women, at least at this point, have come forward and really echoed a lot of what she said. So let's take a look at their statements, and then we're also going to take a look at the statement that Rose McGowan made, who was quite famously Marilyn Manson's fiance. I don't think they actually got married, but she was with him for quite some time. So the first, and this is in no particular order, but the first one was Ashley Walters, or the first one I have in my list is Ashley Walters. And her statement, and this was all put out, I believe, on Instagram, and I'm going to have the pictures of the posts here as well, said, I continue to suffer from PTSD and struggle with depression. I stayed in touch with quite a few people who went through their own traumas under his control. As we all struggled, and as survivors do, to get on with our lives, I'd keep hearing stories disturbingly similar to our own experiences. It became clear the abuse he's caused. He continues to inflict on so many, and I cannot stand by and let this happen to others. Brian Warner, needs to be held accountable. Then we have Sarah McNeely, and she said, I have been afraid to bring any spotlight upon myself as to avoid winding up in his crosshairs again. As a result of the way he treated me, I suffer from mental health issues and PTSD that have affected my personal and professional relationships, self-worth, and personal goals. I believe he gets off on ruining people's lives. I stand in support of all that have come forward and all that will come forward. I want to see Brian held accountable for his evil. So again, very strong statements here. Um, Ashley Lindsay Morgan said, I have night terrors, PTSD, anxiety, and mostly crippling OCD. I try to wash constantly to get him out or off of me. I am coming forward so that he will finally stop. And then a woman who's identified only as Gabriella has said, it has taken me 5 years to speak out and say that what I was in an abusive relationship. I've been diagnosed with PTSD and still suffer from nightmares. I blocked out a lot of the memories, but the feelings remain and manifest in various ways. The reason I'm finally sharing this traumatic experience is for my healing and because I'm done being silent. I don't believe it's fair for someone to not be held accountable for their horrific actions. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And that's really powerful to be able to move, try to move forward and claim survivorship rather than victimhood. I think is a very strong thing. And certainly not everyone can do that. And it shouldn't be, we shouldn't pressure people to make that move. But when they do, I think it can be very, very healing for themselves. And then I did want to say that Rose McGowan, again, made a statement and said, I stand with Evan Rachel Wood and the other brave women who have come forward. It takes years to recover from abuse, and I send them strength on their journey to recovery. Let the truth be revealed. Let the healing begin. Now, Rose McGowan also pointed out in a different statement that um, she did not experience this type of abuse when she was engaged to Marilyn Manson, but that has no bearing on his other relationships with other people. We all know that abusers don't necessarily abuse everyone that they come in contact with, because if they did, we would all just think they're assholes and no one would hang out with them, and they would lose out on access to victims. So this is a great example of somebody standing in solidarity, even though it didn't happen to them directly. They are recognizing that just because they weren't abused by this person, it doesn't mean that everyone had the same experience. So I think that's really, really important. Now, of course, we do need to give Marilyn Manson his due, and I will read you his statement, and then we're going to talk about his statement a little bit. So Marilyn Manson said, obviously, my art and my life have long been magnets for controversy, but these recent claims about me are horrible distortions of reality. My intimate relationships have always been entirely consensual with like-minded partners. Regardless of how and why others are now choosing to misrepresent the past, this is the truth. Okay, sorry if things look slightly different here. Wolfgar was helping. For those of you who don't know, Wolfgar is my dog. It's quite big and not terribly helpful. All right, so let's talk about Manson's statement there. This seems like a very classic sort of Darvo approach. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Darvo, it is a manipulation tactic, and it stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. So basically saying that you are the victim rather than the actual victim. So if you guys would like a more detailed video about Darvo specifically as a manipulation tactic, I'm happy to make that for you. Please just let me know in the comment section. But right now, we're just going to take a look at some of the different elements of his statement that really make me think of this. So the first thing is that he talks about being persecuted. And I think that we can all agree that Marilyn Manson has attracted a lot of negative attention. Now, whether that's because he's brought it on himself or because people are uptight or whatever, I mean, it's certainly up to debate. But he has been quite publicly kind of a weirdo, and I say that as somebody else who is quite publicly kind of a weirdo. So I can see that, but at the same time, he is reversing the victim and the offender here, saying that he's a victim of this persecution. Then he just goes right on to the attack, saying the horrible distortions of reality. That if that's not an attack and a bit of gaslighting, I'm not sure what is. He then denies and he says, about the relationships have always been consensual. Well, here we've got, four people saying that they weren't. And we'll talk a little more about conditions for consent and things like that later on. But he says, oh, they've always been consensual and like-minded individuals. So he's saying, well, they were just like me, and now you know, and then he goes right back to the attack saying, oh, it's misrepresenting the truth. Now, I don't know that there is a way to release a statement that isn't going to have at least some of those elements, but the fact that he hit every single one of them is kind of important. He didn't acknowledge that, I say anything like, I'm sorry that these people feel that this was non-consensual. I thought that it was consensual or anything like that. So let's look at a little bit of the background of this particular situation. Uh, Wood was 18 when she met Manson, who was 36 at the time. It was, let's check my notes and make sure I have everything right. They did start to date in 2006. So these allegations are quite a ways in the past. They then broke up in 2008 and got engaged in 2010. So they kind of had an on again, off again relationship. They separated for the final time later on in 2010. Give like a specific trigger warning here because we are going to get into the details of some of these cases, and I'm going to include where possible the words of the actual survivors themselves because I think that it's important you guys hear it from them directly. So let's take a look at some of the actual statements that people have made. So this is from Gabriella, the person that has gone by the name Gabriella. I met Brian Warner, known as Marilyn Manson, backstage in October 2015. I was 22 and he was 46. The first thing that he ever said to me was that he was going to bite me. We talked while the opening band played, and after the show, he invited me on his tour bus. He immediately love bombed me, telling me that he felt like he'd known me for years and I felt similarly. He offered me cocaine. He told me to take off all my clothes and take a shower in front of him. He asked for my number, and as I was getting ready to leave, he invited me to his show the following evening. The second time we met, he broke a wine glass in the hotel room and demanded we make a blood pact together. He cut both our hands with broken glass. So that's another how they met story. And this is Ashley Lindsay Morgan and how she met Manson. I was contacted by Marilyn Manson, Brian Warner, while modeling overseas in Bangkok, Thailand in 2009, 2010. I genuinely didn't really know who he was, but I had heard of his musician name in high school. We had a mutual photographer friend, and he said Brian wanted me for an upcoming project. I was certainly wary at first. When we met, we talked about literature and film. He seemed intelligent, authentic, and caring. After a long time of talking and texting, he flew me out to Los Angeles to be a part of a film and photo series. He said he believed in me as an actress, and I had confided in him that I wanted to get out of modeling. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. At first, it was. He was like many of the musicians I'd met, but with cocaine and absinthe. He made me feel safe. He told me he'd protect me, and I believed him. I went from the Roosevelt Hotel to living with him very quickly, and things turned very dark very quickly as well. I was given rules and got in trouble for any behavior he didn't approve of. So we can see very strong similarities between the original story that Wood told to Gabriella and now to Morgan. And we have finally one more, and this is from Sarah McNeely. And I do hope that I'm saying people's names correctly. I apologize if I'm not. So Sarah says, Ryan Warner, lured me in with love bombing, posing as the perfect boyfriend, claiming he was just misunderstood. Charming, smart, funny, charismatic. As he was wooing me, I would come to find out that he was torturing others. Before long, I was the one being tortured. I was emotionally abused, terrorized, and scarred. I was locked in rooms when I was bad, sometimes forced to listen to him entertaining other women, kept away from certain friends, or if I didn't, he would threaten to come after them. I was told stories of others who tried to tell their story and their pets ended up dead. I wasn't allowed to go near other artists working on the same set, as he told me that they had AIDS and were disgusting, and if I did so, he would be very upset, and I wouldn't want that. I was verbally berated for hours upon hours, blamed for everything under the sun in order to make me feel worthless. Any male friends in my life were not allowed any longer. He threatened to shank one of them after they posted something on my Facebook page. I was thrown up against a wall and he threatened to bash my face in with the baseball bat he was holding for trying to get him to pick out a pair of pants prior to a music video. I witnessed him staging problems or hiding missing objects in order to justify his violent outbursts. I witnessed him recording others unknowingly in order to have blackmail on most anyone who entered the meat locker, as I called his home. It was kept at a chilly 62 degrees always. I witnessed him terrorize and abuse others in my presence, slander his exes. So this is just a few examples of what some of these women went through or have claimed to have gone through. So we can see here that uh, a lot of these stories have very similar aspects to them. And this is just a few of the alleged victims in this case. Now, Wood herself gave testimony to the House Judiciary Committee in 2018 to advocate for the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights Act. She didn't name Manson uh, in this testimony, but she did describe the abuse, which consisted of threats against her life, some of which were made publicly, severe gaslighting, brainwashing. She says that she was raped while sleeping, and I have a statement from her directly. She says, "The worst part, sick rituals of binding me up by my hands and feet to be mentally and physically tortured until my abuser felt I had proven my love for them," she continued. And this is testimony from that hearing. "While I was tied up and being beaten and told unspeakable things, I truly felt like I could die. Not just because my abuser said to me, 'I could kill you right now,' but because in that moment, I felt like I left my body and I was too afraid to run." I don't have a direct statement from Walters, but she has told people in the past that Manson was gaslighting his inner circle, that he would offer her up for sexual encounters to please potential collaborators, and he would become violent and isolate her from her loved ones, and he does continue to smear her reputation after their professional relationship ended. She added that she continues to suffer PTSD as a result. So again, we are seeing some rather consistent accusations here, definite patterns of what was going on in some of these relationships. Morgan again said that she was cut, she was burned, and that he would stick his fist in her mouth and tried to convince her that this would be something special just between the two of them, that they only did with each other and no others. If this testimony isn't enough for you, there is also Manson's personal assistant. And I'm not sure if this is a former personal assistant. I would assume so, especially after these comments, but Dan Cleary said that Manson broke Wood and that he turned her into a different person when they started dating. He said that Manson would threaten to kill Lindsay, to cut her up, to bury her, to embarrass her in front of the world, and that she would be homeless without him. So this is the partner that said she moved from the hotel into his home very quickly. Manson was also known to make fun of a disabled family member of hers, to which I just have to say this, being a disabled person myself. So we've heard some of the aftermath from these survivors themselves: PTSD, OCD, other anxiety disorders. Wood herself has said that she has struggled with self harm and suicidal ideation. And she did spend some time in a psychiatric hospital after their breakup. Um, Now, from the sounds of things, all of these women are trying to cope as best they can with the experiences that they've had. And I hope, as I'm sure you all do, that they are on the other side of this, that they are finding well, they've already found their strength for speaking out and for surviving so long, but that, and being so brave, and hopefully others who have experienced the same thing will come forward, or at least be able to find that strength in and of themselves. So many of the other victims say they've got, like I said, PTSD and other lingering mental health problems, including the OCD and nightmares and all of that kind of stuff. And it can take, as Rose McGowan said, it can take years for people to recover from this kind of abuse. So I'm not surprised that even 10 years later, a lot of them are still suffering. So once again, as of February 2nd, these things may change in the future. Manson has been dropped from Vista Recordings, which is his record label. They said they will no longer promote his current album and they won't work with him on future projects. AMC had filmed some, I guess, portions of Creepshow Anthology with him, and they said they will not be airing the segments that he is in. So there's others who have said that they no longer wish to work with him, and I'm sure that that list will grow over time. That's just what I could find with a quick internet search. But again, I wrote this morning, so by tomorrow things could be completely different. It's hard to say. So that kind of brings us to, what does this have to do with us in the kink world? Well, I think from the descriptions and the statements that I read to you guys, that you have at least an idea. Now, I don't know that Marilyn Manson has specifically ever come out and said that he is kinky or that he's into BDSM. He certainly hasn't denied it when people have suggested it. In fact, when I was trying to find some information about this, I found stuff from the 2008, 2010 kind of time period where people were talking about his relationship with Wood and commenting on how it's so cool that they're kinky and open and things like that. So this is sort of, even though I'm not aware of him coming right out and saying it, he may have. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan, so I don't pay a ton of attention to Marilyn Manson in the media generally. But I don't think that he's fully come out and said it, but a lot of the activities, the bondage and the rules and things like that could certainly, it's the kind of stuff that we do as kinky people. Now, of course, what I have always talked about is consent being the line between kink and abuse. And, these uh, activities that have gone on are very clearly being alleged to have happened without consent. There certainly is a lot of speculation by fans about all aspects of this. Um, and I think that it's really important that we keep in mind that, fact, uh, survivor statements and speculation are different things. Um, we do, again, as I said in my other video, we need to believe victims and support survivors in their healing. I think that that's very important. I would not be surprised, just by the statements that have been made so far, if more people don't make statements in the next couple of days, couple of weeks, coming forward and saying, "Hey, this happened to me too." I think that the whole Me Too movement has allowed people to come forward in that manner, and I think we're going to see many, many more now that we have these very brave people who have come forward and given their statements. Now, the last thing that I really want to address here, because I just sort of wanted to talk about what was going on, and I wanted to really emphasize that this is not what BDSM is all about. BDSM is the foundational concept here is consent. And you guys who watch my channel regularly know that. I am always talking about consent. I'm going to include some videos for you guys in the cards, this side, that side. I never know which side it is, but I'm going to include some information about or other videos that I've done on consent, and I'll try to link those in the description box or a comment as well. In fact, I'm teaching classes about consent coming up very soon as well. And I don't need to plug my own stuff in the middle of this video, but this is how important it is. We take and teach classes on how to negotiate activities and how to get to consent and what is consent. Now, there are a lot of issues around consent here, and there's some that are not super obvious. Like, obviously, the big one is that it seems like there was no consent. But we need to keep in mind that consent cannot be forced or coerced or manipulated or, any of that kind of stuff. It has to be given freely and it needs to be informed consent. And you can't be giving a consent under the influence. So, with some of the statements that we had here, there was a lot of talk of substance abuse or substance use in general. Whether they were abusing it or not, I do not know, but there's talk of cocaine and absinthe and things like that. So there was some drug use going on and alcohol use and that. So we can't give consent when we're under the influence of these things. Now, when we get into the idea of like forced or manipulated consent, which isn't consent, of course, but the idea that you can force someone or manipulate them, here's where we can get into that you'd be homeless without me, right? That is a manipulation tactic. And that is, you do what I want, or else you're out on the street. You're going to be homeless. Like, no one's going to care. You're going to be a bum on the street, and that's it. Or if you don't listen to me, I'm going to murder you and humiliate you in front of the world, which, by extension, humiliates your family and everything else. So this is, I mean, like the most obvious of manipulation tactics there. Trying to, any consent that happens after these kind of statements is not consent, because there's conditions, there's manipulation and force there. The other thing that we need to talk about too is the status of the people involved. So we have somebody here who's a rock star, like him, don't like him, it doesn't matter. Marilyn Manson is a star. He is famous. He is wealthy. He is, he's got albums. He's an actor. He's done all of this stuff. He's famous. He's a rock star. He has a lot of wealth and fame, all of that. So how does that play into consent? And I don't want to say that, people can never consent to somebody who's in this position, but we need to think about these were young women at the time, and I mean, many still are young women, but young women that were just starting their careers. They were 18, they were 22, they were very young, and he wasn't. And I mean, age gap relationships are what they are. I am 12 years older than my partner, so I'm not going to say they're all bad. But I think when we have people who have a pattern of always dating people sort of around that, age of majority, very, very young, no matter how old they get, that can be problematic. That's not what I'm going to talk. It's not the focus of this video. We can talk about that in a future video as well. But we have all of these elements. So they're just young women starting out their career, and he has all this power and influence. He can destroy their career with a simple phone call. He can destroy them. So how do you consent to anything that this person asks of you? How is it possible for people in these, you know, positions, one of such authority and one of so little authority, to consent? And we talk about this in, say a workplace where, there are strict rules against, the boss and an employee, or in the medical world, a doctor and a patient, because there is such disparity of power there, right? So how is this any different? You know, the young aspiring actress and the megastar, like, I mean, he's not the biggest star in the world, but like, come on. You guys all clicked on this video because you know exactly who he is, right? He's got that fame. So how do we parse ideas of consent when it comes to these kind of things? I mean, we can't say that, well, I guess Marilyn Manson can only ever date people of equal fame and wealth and status because those are the only ones who can realistically consent. I mean, maybe in a perfect world, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this one. I just know that this is a problem, that somebody that has so much authority because of status, because of wealth, because of fame, because of age, um, and again, as the older partner in a relationship, I take that very seriously because I know that because I'm the older one, am looked at as if I have more credibility or more experience or more whatever. And I mean, in some cases, I do, not necessarily credibility, but I do have more experience. Um, but to me, that just means that I need to be even more uh, careful to not harm my partner, and to really make sure that I am doing things in his best interest. As much as I don't particularly like Dan Savage either, apparently I don't like anyone, but Dan Savage, not a huge fan. Uh, but I do like the campground rule that he would talk about, where, in these age gap relationships, it's the responsibility of the older partner to leave the younger partner, better than when we started dating them. Hopefully in terms of like growth and all that, and never to leave them worse. So never to take advantage and to harm them and things like that. So I do think that these concepts are really important. And I think that this is a really nuanced conversation that we should have, and that probably a lot of us have been having. Um, but in this particular situation, I do think that it seems pretty obvious what's been going on here. When one person says it, maybe you can have that plausible deniability. But when so many people are coming out and saying, no, this happened to me as well, and people that don't really, they have nothing to gain here. Like these women are not going after him for money. They don't really have anything to gain, and they have a lot to lose because he could still potentially damage their careers, right? Um, a lot of times when women and women identified people speak out about these things, even if the sort of narrative is believe victims and support survivors and all of that kind of stuff, they still suffer, because they will get hired less because they're viewed as people that are willing to speak out. So I want to hire them because if I do anything wrong, then they're going to speak out against me too. That kind of mentality goes on. So that can be a problem. They may have caused damage to their own careers because they felt the need to speak out about this. I hope that that's not the case. I really do hope that everything goes as well as possible for these women, and I hope that they're able to heal. Um, but I don't know that I have anything else to say about this right now. I find the whole situation very upsetting, because this is, I guess this one just hits a little closer to home than an actor I've never heard about. Um, again, I've never been a big fan of Manson's. I've listened to his music. He's got some songs I like, some I don't. But this is something that, you know, he became famous like as I was kind of coming of age. So it's, you know, he whether I liked him or not, he was a part of my formative years there. So I'm going to leave it there because I could sit here and probably babble for another hour and not get anywhere. So I do invite you guys to leave me your thoughts in the comments section. Please be respectful. And if I see any nasty comments, if I see victim blaming, if I see should have gone to the cops, we're gonna have a talk about that one. We'll do a video about all of that. But if I see that kind of stuff, I'm giving you guys the warning right now. I'm going to delete it. Um, I usually try to be as generous as possible in the comment section, and I don't like I like to let you guys have your say, even if you don't agree with me, even if you call me old, fat, and ugly. Don't really care. It doesn't bother me. But this time, I'm gonna be pretty strict with the comment section. So don't bother, because all that's gonna happen is it's gonna be deleted. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. The next video will be so much of a downer, I promise. No, actually, I don't promise, because we've got some heavy stuff in the next video too. Eventually, we'll get back to having some fun. I promise that much. But apparently, we need to talk about some serious shit lately. So here we are. Actually, the next video is going to be talking about how to protect yourself, and how to identify some problematic behaviors in potential partners. So we're going to talk about that soon. Anyways, guys, thank you so, so much. Please, again, leave me your thoughts in the comment section, but be respectful. And I will see you in the next video.